Welcome back, everybody. And last episode, we just finished chapter 3. And so now I'm going to read chapter 4. So let's get started. All right, chapter 4. It was as if someone had splashed water in Greg's face and brought reality rushing back. Ever since he'd fallen through the hole in the wall, things had been happening so fast. It was all he could do to keep up with them. Now, in this momentary calm, the words New York City came as a shock. Yes, he was a kid who lived in New York City and had to do the laundry and get back upstairs with little sister before his mother. I have to get home now, Gregor blurted out. His mom worked as a receptionist at a dentist's office. She usually got off right at 5 and was home by 5:30. She'd be worried sick if she came in and found that he and Boots had disappeared, especially after what had happened to his dad. He tried to figure out how much time had passed since he was in the laundry room. Well, we probably fell for, let's say 5 minutes. And then we must have run for about 20 with the roaches, and we've been here for maybe 10, he thought. So 35 minutes? Okay, so the clothes should be about dry, he said aloud. If we get back up there in the next 20 minutes, it should be okay. No one would think to look for them before that, and he could just take the laundry up and fold it in the apartment. Really, I need to go back up right now, he said to Vickis. The old man was still examining him closely. It is simple to fall down, but the going up requires much giving. What do you mean? Asked Gregor, his throat tightening. He means you cannot go home, said Luxa flatly. You must stay with us in the Underland. No, thank you, said Gregor. I mean, you're all great, but I've got stuff to do. Upstairs, he said. Thanks again. Nice meeting you. Come on, Boots. Gregor scooped up his sister and headed for the arched opening the roaches had left by. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Luxa raise her hand. For a moment, he thought she was waving goodbye, but that couldn't be right. Luxa wasn't friendly enough to wave. If it's not a wave, then it's a signal, he muttered to Boots. Then he bolted for the doorway. He might have made if he hadn't been hauling Boots, but he couldn't really run with her in his arms. 10 yards from the exit, the first bat swept in front of him, knocking him flat on his back on the ground. His body cushioned Boots' fall, and she immediately sat up on his stomach to enjoy the show. Every bat in the arena had died for them. They flew in a tight circle around Gregor and Boots, locking them in a prison of wings and fur. Each one had a rider as pale and silver-haired as Luxa. Despite the close proximity and speed of the bats, none of the people had any trouble staying mounted. In fact, only a few bothered to hold on at all. One cocky-looking guy on a glossy black bat actually lay in a reclining position, propping up his head with one hand. The riders couldn't take their eyes off of the captives. As they flashed by, Gregor could see their expressions, ranged from amusement to outright hostility. Boots bounced on his stomach and clapped her tiny hands. Bats! Well, at least one of us is enjoying this, thought Gregor. Boots loved bats. At the zoo, she'd stand in front of the large plate glass window of the bat habitat forever if you let her. In the small, dark display, hundreds of bats managed to flit around continuously without knocking into one another. They could do that thing because of something called echolocation. The bats could emit a sound that would echo off something solid, and they'd be able to tell where it was located. Gregor had read the card on the echolocation about 1 billion times, waiting for Boots to get tired of the bats. He felt like something of an expert on the subject. Bats! Chanted Boots, using his stomach for a trampoline. Feeling queasy, Gregor pushed himself up on his elbows and scooted her onto the ground. The last thing he needed was to throw up in front of these people. He got to his feet. Boots tucked her arm around his knee and leaned against him. The circle of bats shrunk in even closer. What, like I'm going somewhere? Said Gregor with aggravation. He heard a couple of the riders laugh. Luxa must have given another signal, because the bats peeled off one at a time and began wheeling around the arena in complicated patterns. Gregor saw that neither she nor Vicus had bothered to move from where he had left them. He looked at the doorway and he knew it was pointless. Still, these people were a little too smug for their own good. Gregor sprinted 3 steps for the exit before he whipped around and headed back to Luxa, catching his sister's hand on the way. Taken by surprise, the bats broke out of their formation and zoomed down, only to find themselves with no one to capture. They pulled up in an awkward clump, and while they didn't actually collide, Gregor felt gratified to see several riders struggling to stay on their bats. The crowd, which had been amazingly quiet since their appearance, broke out in appreciative laughter. Gregor felt a little more confident. At least he wasn't the only one who looked like an idiot. Fake them out, he said to Boots. Luxa's gaze was icy, but Gregor saw Vicus trying to suppress a smile as he walked up. So you said something about a bath, he said to Luxa. You will follow to the palace now, said Luxa crossly. She flicked her hand, and her golden bat swept down behind her. Just as it was about to crash into her, Luxa leaped into the air. She lifted her legs straight out to the sides and touched her toes in a move Gregor thought he'd maybe seen cheerleaders do. The bat ducked under her, and she landed on its back easily. It arched up, missing Gregor by inches. Then it righted itself in the air and sped out of the stadium. You're wasting your time with that stuff, called Gregor. Although Luxa was out of earshot, he felt angry with himself because, in fact, he had to admit this girl had some moves. Vicus had heard him, though. His smile broadened. Gregor scowled at the old man. What? Will you follow to the palace, Overlander? Asked Vicus politely. As what? Your prisoner? Said Gregor bluntly. As our guest, I hope, replied Vicus. Although Queen Luxa has no doubt ordered the dungeon readied for you, his violet eyes literally twinkled, and Gregor found himself liking the man in spite of himself. Maybe because he was pretty sure Vicus liked him, he resisted the temptation to smile. Lead the way, said Gregor indifferently. Vicus nodded and waved him toward the far side of the arena. Gregor followed a few steps behind him, towing Boots. The stands were beginning to empty. High in the air, the people filed out through the exits between their bleachers. Several bats still wove around the stadium doing aerodynamic maneuvers. Whatever game had been in progress had ended when Gregor arrived. The remaining bats and riders were hanging around to keep an eye on him. As they neared the main entrance of the stadium, Vicus dropped back and fell in step with Gregor. You must feel as if you are trapped in a dream, Overlander. I was thinking nightmare, said Gregor evenly. Vicus chuckled. Are bats and crawlers... No, what is it you call them? Cockhorses? Cockroaches, corrected Gregor. Ah, yes, cockroaches, agreed Vicus. In the Overland, they are but handfuls, while here they grow largely. How do you know that? Have you been to the Overland, said Gregor? If Vicus could get there, then so could he and Boots. Oh no, such visits are as rare as trees. It is the Overlanders who come at times to us. I have met 6 or 7, one called Fred Clark, another called Mickey, and most recently, a woman known as Coco. What are you called, Overlander? Asked Vicus. Gregor. Are they still here, or are the other Overlanders still here? Asked Gregor, brightening at the thought. Sadly, no. This is not a gentle place for Overlanders, said Vicus, his face darkening. Gregor stopped pulling Boots up short. You mean you killed them? Now he'd insulted the guy. We? We humans kill the Overlanders? I know of your world, of the evils that transpire there. But we do not kill for sport, said Vicus severely. Today we have taken you in among us. Had we denied you, count on it, you would not be breathing now. I didn't know how it worked here, stammered Gregor, although he should have guessed that it wasn't very diplomatic to suggest Vicus was a murderer. So the roaches would have killed us. The crawlers kill you? Said Vicus. No, it would give them no time. There was that expression again. What did it mean to give the roaches time? But no one else even knows we're here, said Gregor. Vicus looked at him gravely. Concern had replaced his anger. Believe me, boy, by this time, every creature in the Underland knows you are here. Gregor resisted an impulse to look over his shoulder. And that's not a good thing, is it? Vicus shook his head. No, that is not in any manner a good thing. The old man turned to the exit of the stadium. Half a dozen pale, violet-eyed guards flanked two gigantic stone doors. It took their combined efforts to push the doors open a few feet and to allow Vicus to pass. Gregor held Boots through the doors, and they closed immediately behind him. He followed Vicus down a tunnel lined with stone torches to a small arch filled with something dark and fluttery. Gregor thought it might have been more bats, but on closer inspection, he saw it was a cloud of tiny black moths. Was this what he had passed through when he stumbled into the stadium? Vicus gently slid his hand into the insects. These moths are a warning system peculiar to the Underland, I believe. The moment their pattern of flight is disturbed by an intruder, every bat in the area discerns it. I find it so perfect in its simplicity, he said. Then he vanished into the moths. Behind the curtain of wings, Gregor could hear his voice beckoning. Gregor the Overlander, welcome to the city of Regalia. Gregor glanced down at Boots, who had a puzzled look on her face. Go home, Gigo, she asked. He picked her up and gave her what he'd hoped was a reassuring hug. Not now, baby. We have to go do some things first. Then we'll go home. Gregor took a deep breath and stepped into the moths. All right, well, that will conclude chapter 4. Again, I apologize for stumbling on my words and everything. I'm still getting used to reading to an audience. It makes me a little nervous. So, anyways, thank you very much for reading with us, listening. And tune in next time for chapter 5. If you like this video or anything, please like, share, subscribe. You can message any comments or feedbacks or advice, anything in the comment section below. So feel free to do that. I appreciate you all for listening. So you guys have a great day and take care. I'll see you next time.